Hi, this is Matthew Brenner from Double Your Dojo. I am here with Mr. Colin McGill. Say hi.
Hello, everyone. Um,
I started working with Mr. Colin, Mr. McGill over here about a year and a half ago, I think in the middle of COVID, right?
yes. And actually, it's funny. We first met, though, doing some of the, because the martial arts world, we had a lot of connected meetings. And it was at one of the Promax, I think, 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And really amazing experience meeting you and getting to talk to you. So great to be working with you more formally.
Yes, before I ever actually worked with you directly, I would see you at common events we were at. And we were like definitely like friendly, and your school's close to mine. But if you're watching this today, you're going to hear about some of how their school is kind of in the dump, I would say, during COVID, like a lot of schools, including mine. Okay, and different strategies you've used to turn it around. And so if you're watching this and you're still struggling, hopefully this can inspire you. And if you decide that you want help, like we helped Colin over here, grow his school back and get back on track, um, then you're gonna want to watch this video. So before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background, like who you are, how you ended up where you're at?
Great. So I've been doing martial arts since I was 3 years old. So now I've been about 21, 22 years. Earned my fourth degree back in right before COVID, October 2020. Really interesting. No, 2019, my apologies. But I've been teaching martial arts for the past 6 years and been really operating and managing a school for the past 2 years. And I was transitioning from the person who had taught me, Mr. Master Michael Donato, who had been teaching me my entire life. And as he was going on to his rest of his working world in life, I've been taking on the managing of the school and running things and teaching. And while I was learning those skills from a practical and experience perspective, I was also spending effectively full to like almost, well, part to almost full-time time in the school teaching while going to college up about 3 hours away, studying. My degree is in liberal arts, but what I spent my time doing my last 3 years was diving into psychology and developmental psychology. And I was using that kind of time to find the best ways of teaching. For me, obviously, I want to make a career out of the martial arts, but even more importantly, I want to teach martial arts with a professional mindset, really helping these students and these kids in the same way as the other professionals in their life, their teachers and educators, can and should be doing, and bringing that to the culture and the school, and then being able to, even more on top of that, have the instructing team beneath me that also have that professional level and professional results as instructors. And that's really what I've been doing. And as Mr. Brenner said, during COVID, while I was kind of really going full time for the first time, taking on managing and roles, COVID hit right at the end of my senior year of college. And in that time, I was working to keep the school operating and afloat. And we saw a 30 to 50% drop in our student count. We were a 300 student school, just about, more like 325. And then by the middle of the summer after COVID started, we're talking, actively training maybe 100, 125, 150 students. And that's a huge drop personally and emotionally, having all those quick calls come in, and professionally. And really, we've been working hard to keep it moving. But until we were working with Matthew Brenner and a lot of, really partnering up with him and the teams we're with together, we saw at the beginning of really this past year, which was 2021, over that year, the school changed dramatically. I think we had a gain of almost
Whoa,
115
Don't even
students.
tell me that yet. Don't too much.
Too much.
We'll get to that soon. So let's go back. I think you're kind of giving your whole life story now, which is cool. But I want to kind of like just track from beginning to end. Okay. So you are under a martial arts instructor who was the owner there for a really, really long time. He decided to move on. Now you're in charge, right? Like you're the school manager, the head instructor, and obviously it's COVID time. So what problems were you having?
Our biggest problem was getting new people in the door and keeping them at any kind of meaningful price point. So for a little while during COVID, because we were doing only virtual, we had only virtual price points of some students $20 a week, which for us, that works out to being like 50% of what our long-term average student value was, which at the time was $130 a month. And so the big struggle was getting people in, meaningfully people in, not just people who are coming in for free and then leaving, and sustaining, having this system to do it in a sustainable way. And especially because for me, my big challenge was I was learning all of these professional skills of running the school and managing this, the systems that were really, everything was dumped in at once. And my challenge that I ran into was Machinato is an amazing martial artist, amazing instructor and business person, but he's also very much a compulsive, I will all do everything person. Matthew, Mr. Brenner, I know you've seen, because you actually were talking about like talking with your floors and trying to do some work on them. And he just shows up and helps you do all the mat work. And that's how he works, but that's not sustainable for everyone. And it's not a system that was followable. It was just in his head. And so the biggest challenge was taking the things that were in his head and turning it into something that can be done by somebody who is not him.
Got it. So kind of taking over that power vacuum of, someone else who was in charge. Now you're in charge again, but that person still kind of like wants the help, but obviously when that person's helping, it's hard for you to necessarily like build that next level of leadership, right? And then
that's part of it. And also in him trying to communicate, because of his working style, trying to communicate how to like solve a, students enrolling problem or going through those things, because he, his solution was, for him, he grew up and worked through 100-hour weeks where you would literally hand door to door nonstop. That's how he first started building the school. Some of that is really useful to learn as a leader running a school and a manager. And a lot of it, though, was me trying to learn how to do a system that was designed around Machinato remembered and did everything. Okay. And so that assumes you have his memory, his knowledge, everything 25 years into running his school.
Got it. So it sounds like the real issue is obviously COVID happened, student value cut in half your students left, and their values cut in half, right?
Yeah.
And B, there's a lot of like strong arming of like systems that he knew in his head, but you guys didn't necessarily have for the rest of the team. So transferring that power. And I think a lot of martial arts school owners have that challenge that if they can run the school, right? I can run the school great on my own if I'm there every day and do everything, work 100 hours. But the real skill is being able to help others do that, right? So you don't do it on your own. So what kind of what did we do specifically that was able to help you guys, turn a lot of that around?
First, the intro and enrollment script conversation, all of those documents from they scheduled their first lesson to going through and enrolling, those scripts, how it's done, the presentation, not only is it smooth getting to the enrollment, but it pre-frames the actual investment and reason why they're walking in the door. And it selects for people who want to invest in developing their child, as opposed to this is just an activity. And it makes a huge, huge difference, not only in the, we got more students enrolled number, but also the culture and climate of the school. Now, the culture of the school is much more, if there's an issue with a student at home or at school, and we're talking like we're partnered with the family or parents, as opposed to in the past, we would have sometimes students who needed more support, but effectively when we went to the parents to speak with them, work with them to partner to help their child, they basically wanted to be hands-free and didn't want to be a part of it. And so because they weren't pre-framed with that expectation, that kind of language and connection was lost. And the people who lost, first, the student then would often quit or disenroll because, well, there's something going on. The parents, I'll just leave. But the other thing is that the child then loses because they don't have the team together. And just going through how the language, the scripting, all of that, that was huge. And on top of that, having very specific systems that can cover for different challenges, going through attendance once per week and doing, the DNS either scheduling or they didn't come in last week, reach outs and phone calls, and just having a very specific, this is how we can do this. And I could hand that system to most people and it'd be done in a meaningful way. Whereas previously, when I was learning to teach, I learned to teach at first a lot by watching teaching. And there's a lot of benefit to that. However, that's a long process. And now I've got leaders who have only in the past 3-6 months, they've been working at various ages, teenagers and adults. And now they have the capacity to take portions of class in a way that means I can separate. And if I needed to help a child that is struggling, I can spend that time meaningfully with one student or family. Or if there's like a phone call or like an enrollment activity that's going on, that those things can separate and be done. And for me, the true magic of it all is from those systems.
Got it. So what is the systems for enrolling new people, the scripting, the language, so you're not seen as like just an activity, but you're seen as something different, right? So they'll be more willing to pay not only a higher price point, but more willing to just enroll in general because they're not just price shopping you around with other schools, the martial arts schools in the area, right, or other activities. But also having the systems like how to follow up and when to do this, like everyone knows, like people don't show up, you should call them, right? Like everyone knows the martial arts industry. Ever been to any seminar, you know that, right?
But what does that call have to sound like? I think is one of that's part of the system. That's like, it's really easy to say we need to call them, but what does it look and sound like? There's a huge difference.
Right, exactly. Like what time of the day, when to do it, how often to do it, like what's the trigger to make it happen. Everyone knows the ideas, but actually making it happen and having a system of when and where and how this happens is what makes a difference, right? Because otherwise, never actually, you get the idea, but unless you do it, it doesn't really matter. So, what do you think the outcome was? Like, how's the school changed from when, you were in a dumpster in COVID, and then to where you guys are now?
First, I mean, the biggest changes during the middle of COVID, even when we were getting better, but not getting better with any kind of haste, we were at one point, we were literally sitting there and talking how can we post date the close of the school by a week? How can we last another week? And then we got to a point where, okay, things are going well enough. We've got another month. And that was with all the instructors and team really cutting it lean for themselves personally. And then we're now in a place where my thoughts for the school are accelerated growth and goals, looking at the benefit of stability and long-term, the school doing better. But in my head, there's no thought to me about the school in a year to 2 years not being there for its students or for its instruction team.
At some point, you didn't even know where your next student or meal was coming from, or school's even going to be open, right?
No, I mean, we ran a summer camp in that first year of the pandemic. And in all honesty, the reason why the summer camp ran was primarily because we needed not only to boost the revenues during the summer, like usually a summer camp in our industry is done for, but if we didn't run that camp, we were real close to door shuttering. And that was a very difficult camp to run. And, the logistics and financial changes we had to do to make it operable with the new restrictions were significant. And now we're in a place where I don't have that thought. I can talk to instructors and give them opportunities. And that, to me, that's huge, just on a stability side and an ability to, I can sleep at night.
Got it. Okay. So obviously you're not in a place of desperation anymore, right?
No.
Which changes the way how you run your school, how you teach, and how you guys enroll new students. You don't come in it from the area of desperation, right? So where do you think you'd be right now if you didn't get to the point where you found us and we were able to help you, and I was able to help you, implement these systems and enrolling new students and finding new students. Like, where do you think you'd be?
So if I was going to vision cast the direction of the school, if it never joined working with you and your team, the school, I have an anticipation for where it was. It would still exist, but it would definitely not be having the results and success that it is. It would not be as high. I would be very surprised if it was. And by that, I mean, we started the January of 2021. Was the first when we started working together. And the school was doing, I think like 22, 23, I could pull up the numbers, 1,000 a month. Like that was, and we were fighting tooth and nail to get 22 and 23. And we did the past 3 months, the end of 2021, it was, I think 40, 38, 40 was our gross revenue, which was our pre-COVID numbers.
You actually did double your dojo.
We did. And not only that, but month over month, over a 12-month period, every month was 15,000 higher after March. Amazing. Of the previous month.
That's awesome. And so what would
or not month over month, year over year, my apologies.
So what would you say to someone who's maybe on the fence about getting help from me or the team, and they're just not sure if it's right for them, and they don't want to waste time or energy and money? Like, what would you say?
For me, I would spend that in time and investment, simply because wherever you are and your business is, like right now, our goals would, this school and location would have been deadlocked. Its thought process being, you know what, the school will do 35 to 40,000 in revenue grossing monthly. That's good. And that is, the limit effectively, because that's where it had been for, good Lord, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And now when we're talking, wherever we are each month, our goal is by the end of this year, and where we're, if we keep the growth that's been going on and we keep the systems, I don't see why the growth couldn't happen. We are very conservatively going to end the year with months at 50,000. And that would have been after 2007 for this school, a imaginary number. Like, it would just not have been even a consideration in the attempt. And to be able to say, going from literally not going where the food's coming from to now we're stable and our instructors can take vacations and are financially in a good place personally, to now we can look at doing something that in the studio's history would have been unheard of. And the way before 2007, we had hit those numbers before, but it was, not average that number. It was very spiky because it was a paid in full model. And now we're looking at the end of the year, being at a relatively stable average of the year of like 45 grossing and 50 going into the next year. And I wouldn't have even known how to get there or that it was possible if I wasn't working with your team and you.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for the kind words. If you're watching this now and you're like, I don't know if it's possible for me or my team or my managers, then you can see right here with Mr. Colin McGill that it is possible. Even if you never thought it was possible, you think you're in a bad neighborhood or COVID or whatever, it is if you have the right systems, the right support. There's some of the best NBA players of all time are under 6 feet tall. So if they can make it work with the right coaches, you can make it work with the right coaches in your business. Thank you so much. And if you're interested in more information about how to work with us, how we can help, reach out to me directly. My name is Matthew Brenner at wdojo.com, and talk soon.